Welcome to the Dr. Truth Show with Dr. Michael Hall and Sophia. It is the 21st of August, 2020, Friday. In today's episode, we are going to talk about COVID, SARS-CoV-1 infection, SARS-CoV-2 infection, and coronavirus along with flu. And the reason why this is going to be an important episode is because we're going to catch all of these things into one basket, and we're going to see what we can do to boost your immune system and improve your overall outcome of fighting these different viruses, and doing that effectively without really causing any side effects to your system. And in my experience, I have used several things that I find very effective, that are natural, that are cheap, and that really do make a difference in trying to prevent any sort of viral infection. And I think it's a really good place to begin today. So, as you know, viruses are very small, tiny particles. They're micron-size particles, about the size maybe of a tiny, tiny, tiny piece of dust. Actually, much smaller than that, but you can think of a piece of dust floating through the air as a possible type of comparison. And usually what happens with the virus becomes airborne, or it sticks on a surface because there's spittle, and we call that fomite. So even when you speak, you're producing small amounts of saliva droplets, and those droplets go just about everywhere around you. The larger ones fall to the ground, and then the larger pieces of mucus and saliva do stick to surfaces. So that could be on a book or a telephone or a desk, door handle. And then the much smaller pieces of virus and the saliva do get airborne, and they move around in the air, and they can enter into a airstream and move around quite far. Sometimes they actually can attach to larger parts of airborne debris, could be pollution or dust or whatnot, and electrostatically attach. And then you breathe that piece of dust or pollution in, and it could have thousands or millions of virus particles attached to it. So that's one of the things that people don't seem to understand about mask wearing. The masks are effective only for a couple of reasons. One is it prevents that spittle that I just described from exiting the face and into the atmosphere onto a surface. So if you cough, you sneeze, you're speaking, those particles are being emitted. So if you're wearing a mask, you're going to prevent that from happening. Now, SARS-CoV-2, which is COVID, the disease itself is called COVID. And people don't realize that the idea behind the mask is really an important one, in as much as it prevents asymptomatic carriers from spreading the disease. So if you didn't know that you had it and you were talking and it was being emitted from you, it could contaminate the area around you and others could get sick. So that's the simple feature behind wearing the mask. I don't think there's anything more than that. It's not foolproof, and it doesn't necessarily stop 100% of transmission, but it does have some effect. And I think it's a good idea for people to understand why to do it. Obviously, there are all kinds of studies that show that you're 18 times more likely to get the infection inside rather than outside, so that more than likely wearing the mask makes sense going inside a building where you have air conditioning and low humidity, and that's what the virus likes. It likes that kind of environment. So we do recommend that that's something you consider. So the next piece of the discussion is going to go toward what you can do to boost your immune system. One of the things that I find ironic is that there are no world leaders, and in fact, no World Health Organization leaders or UN delegates or American health leaders like Dr. Fauci and others from the CDC or NIH that are talking about how to boost the immune system. Those are really topics I think that need to be talked about to the general public, and I think that would make a huge difference. And I think that there are very few people that understand that you can overall improve your outcome if you do get infected by just doing simple things to boost the immune system. So I would imagine most people understand about vitamins and minerals. Not everyone understands how they work, but they help you live a better life. And in a world where we are constantly being assaulted with new bacteria, drug-resistant bacteria, zoonotic bacteria, meaning that things that come from other animals, and exotic bacteria and viruses, for instance, bubonic plague, which is now found in California and China. It seems to be on the rise. And we also have Zika, West Nile virus, and dengue fever. So in Florida, where we're at, we have an assortment of different virus attacks that are going on throughout the state. And of course, we have Lyme disease in the Northeast, which is a bacterium. So anyway, so the idea is that what can you do from a very simple and cheap perspective to try to increase your immune system for you, your family, or your loved ones? Number one is to use vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. Those three things really will make an impact on how well you fight a viral infection. So let's talk about vitamin C. Vitamin C is ascorbic acid. It's incredibly cheap. It's very plentiful. You can buy it almost anywhere. And it really is effective. It's effective for a variety of reasons. It's used as an antioxidant by the body. It's used to make collagen, as collagen is formed in all our cells that form into organs, use collagen to structure themselves together. And then it's also used by the white blood cells to form lysozyme, which is a antibacterial, antiviral chemical. Basically, it's a caustic agent produced by the cells, the white blood cells, to defeat an infection. So that molecule that, as I mentioned, is very cheap, very plentiful, is typically deficient in most of the things that we're consuming. So you get vitamin C from things like citrus. So an orange may have 50 milligrams of vitamin C, and you may not get all of that in one helping. But if you take a supplement of vitamin C, so you could take an ester of that vitamin C, which is a different form of it, in a powder, in a capsule, and you could get 1,000 or 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C versus eating 10 or 15 oranges. So my recommendation is that if you consume around 1,500 milligrams twice a day of vitamin C, you're going to get incredible immune boosting, immune modulating dose that will help your body fight off infection. Studies show that anything more than that consumed in one day may be urinated out of the body. It is a water-soluble vitamin, and it may be that anything more than that really isn't necessary. And in my opinion, that 3,000 milligram dose is probably the safe, effective way to boost your body's immune system with vitamin C. And vitamin C, as I mentioned, is very inexpensive, and you can buy it almost anywhere. So we sell it under our own house brand, and we typically have a capsule of it with 750 milligrams, and you take that twice a day, 2 capsules twice a day, and that's enough. And you do that every day, and you're going to find that it's going to be a good regimen to boost the levels. If we check blood levels before and after, we normally see them go up, and I think that overall, it's probably a very smart thing to consider. Now, the second product I mentioned was vitamin D, and vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, and that one is pretty inexpensive as well. The international recommended dose is around 400 international units a day. 400, not 4,000. So what we do recommend is to take anywhere between 2 and 4,000 a day. So that's 10 times the amount that's recommended. And the reason why is twofold. One is to raise blood levels up to a point where they become effective. You need a much higher amount in the bloodstream than what you would consider at that 400 IU amount. So with that in mind, there have been studies that show taking even 10,000 IUs a day may not raise blood levels by 10 points after 2 weeks. So it's safe to say that taking around 4,000 a day, and it doesn't mean you have to take it every day, but that will probably be enough. In addition to that, vitamin D, we think about the conversion of vitamin D in the skin. And that's why people say, well, if you get exposure to UV radiation, which is from the sun, you convert vitamin D cholecalciferol into its active form. And there's a couple of different steps to that, and I won't go into that. But the theory is that what happens in the lipid layer of the skin is kind of where the magic happens. So the lipid layer, the fat layer of the skin, is where the conversion occurs once the UV radiation penetrates that tissue. What happens, though, is that we take multiple showers throughout the day, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day. People that work out, people that are doing sport, they will normally take a shower in the morning, take a shower in the evening, and some even take showers before they go to bed. If you've been in the sun and you've taken a shower, you're going to defeat the body's ability to convert the vitamin D into its active form. So you will reduce your vitamin D levels, even though you think you're increasing them by being in the sun. So we do recommend that you supplement with vitamin D. Vitamin D acts on the immune system in a variety of different ways. It has also a hormonal effect. It does trigger a cascade of different activities in the immune system, but it does boost the ability for the body's blood cells, lymphocytes to work better and prevent infection. And typically, there is some theory that we do feel better with vitamin D. Vitamin D may have a boost on our mood and some of the other mental functions. So it's a very versatile vitamin. It's also used in the bone substructure to bring in calcium. Everyone knows that. So vitamin D and calcium go together, so it helps build strong bone. But we're talking about the immune system in particular. So it does have a totally different effect. Third thing I wanted to talk about was zinc. There's different forms of zinc. Zinc is a trace element, trace mineral. It is a product that can be found in a variety of different multivitamins, usually in very small amounts, sometimes a milligram or 2. Zinc and selenium, molybdenum, chromium, they're all trace metals, basically, that are found in the earth. And people that are vegetarian typically tend to have lower levels. People that don't consume certain types of meats, in particular the herbivores, land terrestrial creatures, those typically have more amounts of zinc than, say, fish or poultry. The most important thing about zinc inhibits the replication process of most viruses, and we don't have time to go into exactly why that occurs, but zinc inside the cell prevents viral replication. That's a great thing. So taking zinc each day, and certain amounts of zinc can be debated, 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams, it just depends. There's zinc lozenges, zinc pills, zinc syrups, and zinc fizzy. So adding zinc anywhere from 25 to 50 milligrams a day, particularly if you start to feel like you're coming on with something, is a very good idea. The next thing I want to talk about is an herb. It's called Virographis paniculata. It is a Asian herb. It comes from Southeast Asia, particularly in Malaysia and I think other parts of the area, including India. And this particular type of herb has a unique effect. It boosts the T lymphocytes' effective killing potential. So, what was found is that during the 1918 flu pandemic, Virographis seemed to help people with flu. It seemed to be, some would say, a natural remedy for the flu. I have, in fact, used it in my clinic. I produce a product called Dr. Hall's Virus Blocker. It does have Virographis in it and other things. And if you want to look that up, you can go to the website. But Virographis, without question, has been shown to increase T lymphocyte capability. T lymphocytes are different than B lymphocytes. B lymphocytes make immunoglobulins. T lymphocyte activity will actually kill a virus. It goes after the virus and will destroy the virus. So the more T lymphocytes that you have, those cells actually do impact your ability to fight the virus directly. My thinking is that that is another simple thing to include into your regimen of nutrition each day, especially during this particular pandemic. So I won't really go into details of dosing. I think you can look that up online, and if you have any questions, you can contact the clinic. I think that it makes sense to consider a regimen that is really based on stress reduction as well. So being outside, getting sunlight, being in water, especially if you live near an ocean, being able to be in nature does have a tremendous effect on our immune system as well. So we can naturally boost our immune system by de-stressing, reducing cortisol and adrenaline. We can boost the immune system by taking consumables, so nutritional components, and those are both vitamins, minerals, and herbs, and the trace metals I mentioned. And then the third thing is to wear the mask just for right now. And I think that there is a tremendous feeling that they're not effective. I think if you're going to be inside, it makes sense to wear a mask. And if you're going to be outside and you're being active, you don't need to. I would avoid the idea of being political about it. I think it's just a good habit. We're doing that and not for a look or a feel or solidarity. We're doing it to actually prevent spittle from coming out of the mouth while we speak, while we talk, into the environment around you. And that's the whole point behind it. And if you're going to wear it, then I think that it makes sense. If you've had COVID, people don't know you've had COVID, so they're going to, sometimes wonder. I think there's this whole controversy that's been publicized in the social media and press that's unnecessary. If you really want to look at it, I don't think that it's going to be something that will be required forever. I think it's a short-term impact on our ability to socialize and to live. But once we get a handle on this, I think that that will have no more bearing on our psyche. I don't anticipate COVID continuing the way that we thought it would. It seems that it is mutating. It may be becoming weaker. We see other parts of the world that seem to have eradicated it to a great extent. Some areas are seeing it come back. It's going to ping pong based on the social distancing and mask wearing and doing other things to mitigate spread, but that's not important. What's important is, do we see cases going down? I think we do. And that has to do more with the virus mutating into something probably less virulent. Make no question, COVID is a real disease. There's no debate on that. If you get it, 90% of people survive without anything more than just a few flu symptoms. Another 10% really do get sick, and a small percent end up in the hospital, and I've seen that in my clinic. So there's no question that some people can get really sick, and we're not sure exactly why. I've had people that have been very healthy and do all the right things get sick, and of other people that have absolutely no symptoms at all, and you wouldn't know why. So it is a tricky, very complex issue. We don't want to get into the reasons of why it's like that, because we suspect it's probably a manufactured virus in a lab, and I believe is probably correct. There's a lot of debate. It did not come out of a natural process, so we need to be careful about what we're doing with this. So as a doctor and a health practitioner in South Florida, we know that there are cases around us all the time, and they continue being a problem for hospitals and our environment in which we live. But we seem to be going back down into lower numbers, so hopefully that progression will continue. So anyway, I hope that it was helpful. And if there are any questions or comments, you can always contact us through email, clinic@halllongevity.com with 2 L's, and reach us 305-672-4733. You can visit the website, www.halllongevity.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you a great weekend.